Shimmering Skies is only about a month away, which means we're going to start getting a lot of card reveals in the next few weeks. Since the initial video release, we've had 9 more cards revealed that I'm going to cover in this video today. So let's not waste any time and let's get into it. Alright, first up we have an uninkable 4-cost Emerald card, Remember Who You Are. It is an action and it reads, if chosen opponent has more cards in their hand than you, draw cards until you have the same number. This is a pretty interesting card. It probably won't see a ton of play in Constructed just because it's not a song, and it only really goes in like a green aggro deck, which there aren't really any green aggro decks going around currently. Whether or not there are any in set 5 remains to be seen. In draft, this could actually be pretty awesome as a way for you to get some card draw, which is really lacking in draft. So I think I would play this probably in draft. In Constructed, I don't know. It's going to be sort of a wait and see sort of situation. All right, for number 2, we have, again, an uninkable 4-cost character this time. Stitch, Team Underdog. It's a steel, storyborn hero, alien, with 1 strength and 4 willpower, and the ability Heave Ho. When you play this character, you may deal 2 damage to chosen character, and he has 1 lore pip. I think, again, in draft, I think this is okay. It is very understated. The direct 2 damage to removal, though, is kind of nice, although it's going to be sort of dependent on what else is in the format. We haven't seen a ton, even though we've seen about 30 cards, I want to say. But 2 damage isn't really going to be wiping out much. For Constructed, the immediate thought goes to something like Diablo, but we have so many other answers to Diablo that cost a lot less than this or are just easier to do than this. So we'll see. Constructed, I don't really think this sees much play. Maybe down the road, maybe in a green steel ping deck, which sort of kind of started to exist in set 2 but never really found its footing. It seems like maybe they might be trying to revive that again and give it some more tools so that it can exist. I would like to see that. But yeah, card's fine, I guess. All right, so these next 2 are sort of a package deal. This is a 3-cost inkable Ruby card, Minnie Mouse, Dazzling Dancer. She has 2 strength, 4 willpower. She's a Dreamborn hero, and her ability is Dance Off. Whenever this character or one of your characters named Mickey Mouse challenges another character, gain 1 lore, and she also quests for 1 lore. Man, I like the art. It being inkable is pretty cool. It's statted okay. I just think this is very strange, like only giving your character's name Mickey Mouse, and of course her as well, but with a 2/4, you're not really taking much out. This sort of is like a worse Shere Khan in a way, because Shere Khan is any of your characters when they challenge another character, they get lore. Instead of this, you could also just be playing something like Super Goof, which does the same thing, sort of, except, gets you more lore. It does have the same stats. I don't know. This card is interesting, but a little weird. I could see it working in maybe a future format where you play only Mickey and Minnie cards or something, and that is just what you do and you gain lore that way. I think I would rather be playing things like Shere Khan and Super Goof instead of this and trying to make this work. In draft, it's decently statted, and if you do actually challenge with this and get 1 free lore, then that's kind of nice. In draft, I would probably actually take this because it is inkable, and either way, you're probably going to get 1 lore off this just by default. Having 4 willpower is kind of nice too. So yeah, it's not terrible in draft. I actually think this is like a pretty okay choice. In Constructed though, I think you're going to probably want to build around this, and I don't think you're going to, build around challenging and probably put this in a challenge deck that for some reason only runs Mickey and Minnies or has an amount of them in there, but I don't know. It's a little strange. Next up, the other side of this, we have an inkable 4-cost Ruby card, Mickey Mouse, Enthusiastic Dancer, also a 2/4 with the ability Perfect Partners. While you have a character named Minnie Mouse in play, this character gets +2 strength, making him a 4/4. And he also quests for 2 lore. So, the play is get Minnie out on turn 3, and then on turn 4 you play Mickey Mouse, and you're dropping a 4/4 for 4 that will get 1 lore when he challenges, if Minnie's still on the board, and can quest for 2 lore. The problem is he has 2 lore, so why would you use Minnie to attack with him? Why wouldn't you just quest with him? It'd be different if instead of him getting 2 strength, he got an extra lore or something, and then was questing for 3. Then all of a sudden the Mickey Minnie combo becomes a little bit of a threat. I just feel like it's not quite doing what you want to do. If he had 1 lore, I think this would be fine, because it would still, you'd be like, well, if I quest, I could do the same thing as if I was just attacking or something, right? Whereas with this, it's like, oh, but if Minnie wants me to attack, but I actually win the game more if I quest instead, which is a little strange. But I guess what you could argue is that you're making a choice between 1 lore and attacking and 2 lore and not attacking, which is actually okay. Like, I feel like I'm talking myself maybe into it a little more, but I just don't think this combo has enough impact to really have like any sort of effect on the game, especially with the way the game is right now. Like, if I had to play with these in set 4 meta, I just don't feel like these are going to work very well. And they're also only 2 strength, which means they're going to just get brawled, out into oblivion. So, they're neat, they're cute. I think maybe one day someone will make a Mickey Minnie tribal deck or something and it'll work, but until then, it's cute, but I don't think it sees a ton of play. In draft, I could see myself just running the Mickey by himself just because of the 4 willpower and the 2 lore, but other than that, I am kind of lukewarm on it. All right, next up, we don't have a ton to say about this one, but it is a inkable 5-cost Sapphire card, Ludwig von Drake, self-proclaimed genius. He has 4 strength, 4 willpower. He's a Storyborn ally vanilla with 3 lore. Yeah, he's a vanilla. Not much to say. He has a lot of lore, which a lot of random Sapphire cards seem to have a lot of lore. Like think of King Louis or Maleficent Uninvited. Like, they both kind of sit around this cost. Well, King Louis is a little more expensive, but they sit around this cost and they just have like 3 lore and that's all they do. This is definitely a draft card. Like, I would take this in draft. It's solid, has a solid body, solid strength. Like, it's going to be able to take a lot of things out, and it quests for 3 lore. It doesn't do anything flashy, but it'll get you to the end of the game for sure. So in draft, yeah, would totally take this. As a pretty good uncommon to grab. Constructed, there's no way this sees any play. All right, number 6, we have pretty interesting one here that we'll get into. This is a uninkable 9-cost Robin Hood Timely Contestant. It's an emerald card, 6 strength, 6 willpower, Storyborn hero. He has an ability, Tag Me In. For each 1 damage on opposing characters, you pay 1 less to play this card. And he also has Ward and 4 lore. So this definitely goes into Emerald Steel Ping, which again was sort of hinted at as an archetype back in set 2, but never really saw the light of day. Didn't really get a lot of support. I mean, it got some support in set 3 with things like Helga Sinclair, but it's just like not really there yet. And this ability is a little strange, and on first reading it, I thought, oh, for each 1 damage on a character or different characters, that this would be cheaper. But now that I'm seeing it for each 1 damage on opposing characters, meaning, if they only have 1 thing on the other side of the board and it has 4 damage, does this suddenly become a 5-drop? Because if that's the case, then that's a little nuts. But it's hard to tell. Like, I think that's how it works, but I'm wondering if we might need some rules clarifications on it. If that is how it works, that is kind of crazy and goes right into, like, this is basically the bomb for the ping deck that you definitely want to play. But if it's just for each damage on a character, so if there's 2 damage on one and 1 damage on another, is it counting that there's 2 damaged characters? But it does say for each 1 damage on opposing characters, so I am thinking it works the way that it works in my first example. So if that's the case, that is kind of crazy in a very specific deck. In draft, it might be okay. If you can actually get that high in ink count, then I guess you deserve to play this. But I would say it's kind of a hard sell in draft, even though if you can do it, this thing's gonna win you the game. In Constructed, I still only really think it goes in that one archetype, and, you know, time will tell if that archetype even ends up being good. All right, number 7, we're almost there. We have an uninkable 6-cost Amethyst card, Louisa Madrigal, Entertaining Muscle. She has 4 strength, 8 willpower. She's a Storyborn ally, Madrigal, and a vanilla, and she quests for 3. Yeah, in Constructed, could this see play? I'm going to say probably not, just with things like Ice Block and all of the removal that's around. However, in Draft, I think I would definitely play this card because 6 ink, yes, while it's a lot, you could probably get there. And if you did get there, this card's going to be so difficult to remove, and it quests for 3 lore. So I definitely think it's worth taking as a bomb, especially if you don't get something like the Robin Hood in your deck while you're drafting. This could be a great draft bomb, but in terms of Constructed, like, it looks flashy, but it's sort of like a trap in a way. Like, it looks big and imposing, but a lot of the removal that's going around in Constructed, it can probably easily take care of this. So yeah, Draft though, for sure, would play it. All right, second to last, this is an inkable 5-drop steel card, Tug of War, an action, and it says choose one, deal 1 damage to each opposing character without evasive, or deal 3 damage to each opposing character with evasive. So I will say right off the bat, I love cards with choices, because it's sort of like getting 2 cards in one. You know, if this card only said deal 1 damage to each opposing character without evasive, this would be basically unplayable. But if it said deal 3 damage to each opposing character with evasive, and it just said that, you'd think, well, it's okay, I guess. Together, it makes them slightly better. Is this card good, though? I don't know. I mean, you could treat it like an inkable Grab Your Sword, I guess. But it's not as reliable, I would say, as Grab Your Sword, since it's 2 damage across the board, and 2 damage does take out a lot of threats. And also, your opponent might not always be running evasive characters. And if they are, then, you know, this does pretty well. But if they're not, it's like Grab Your Sword, but worse. So why would you play it, you know? I don't know. I think time will tell with this one. It's really going to depend. You know, if you're really struggling for less uninkables in a steel deck, and you just for some reason are like, well, I could play 2 Tug of War and 2 Grab Your Sword so that I have at least some variety, I guess you could do that, but I don't know. My instinct is that this card's not that good, but we'll have to wait and see. This could also go in the ping deck that we were just talking about, just to get some damage on all characters, as long as they're all evasive or non-evasive, which could actually be pretty cool. What hurts it though, even more though, other than Grab Your Sword, is this isn't a song, whereas Grab Your Sword is, so it's just sort of objectively better because it can be sung and it just does a consistent thing. I don't know. My instinct is that I'm a little bit like negative on this card, but I could see time changing my mind. All right, last but not least, we have a 7-drop inkable ruby card, Rigan, Party Crasher, 5 strength, 5 willpower, Floodborn villain. He has Shift 4, evasive, and the ability Delightfully Wicked. Your damaged characters get +2 strength, and he also quests for 3 lore. So a big body with a 5/5 who quests for 3 lore and is evasive sounds pretty great on the surface. The main problem I have with this card is that, yes, it's a Shift 4, but there aren't really any good Radigan shift targets to use this in currently. So we might see a better shift target in set 5 for Radigan, which might make this better. He definitely does go in an archetype. He goes in the Ruby sort of like my characters are hurt and now they're better sort of archetype, slash like you could use things like damage movement, which is an archetype that sort of hasn't come into its own yet but is around. And then there's also the, you know, Ruby hurts myself and then use Amber to heal myself to get some sort of benefit like drawing cards or something. This could go in there as well. Damage characters getting +2 strength. I mean, it's not that exciting. I think if damage characters got like, even if it was just like +1 lore, I think that would be way more exciting and people would build around this card. But as it stands, I don't know. I don't think you necessarily play this in draft unless there is a Radigan shift target that we have not seen yet that makes this playable, because 7 ink in draft is just asking a lot. And then on top of that, getting your damage characters plus 2 strength's not really that big a deal. But it being evasive with 3 lore is nothing to sneeze at, but I'm still a little up in the air. I think it really depends on what sort of like Radigan shift targets we have for this, because as it stands, the ones that are available to us are just like not that great. So TBD, we'll see how this card does. All right, so those were 9 new cards coming in Shimmering Skies next month in August. Some interesting stuff in there. I think this batch of 9 is a little underwhelming, although that Robin Hood could prove to be pretty strong, but we'll have to see. I still think it only really goes in one deck type, but you know, we'll see. We've only seen so much of this set, like barely any of it, so we'll see how it goes. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to like and subscribe to the Sorcerer's Hat and hit the bell button to be notified when I release more Lorcana content. Bye-bye. Love you.